Welcome to the Past Lives Cafe. I am your host, Chione, an intuitive energy worker and acclaimed past life regressionist. Come with me as we journey through the spiral of time to forgotten places. I am so happy to introduce today Chloe Brown. She is my co-host on the Mystical Mermaid Lounge podcast. She has become a sister and a great friend of mine, but she is also a multi-talented psychic medium, solitary witch, and hails from the Pacific Northwest. We are here today to talk with her all about her past life regression experience that she had several years ago. Welcome, my dear friend.
Oh, thanks for having me. That's such a beautiful intro. Wow. Thank you.
Quite welcome. I am interested to hear about your spiritual path. I know that your upbringing has not necessarily been conducive to any sort of religious or faith-based foundation, but I know that you have found connection in nature and animal type of energy. So let's hear how you continue to connect and your spiritual path as it relates to today.
Oh, thank you. Well, you're not wrong. I never really had that type of foundation on energies or intuition or anything within. I was raised to not believe in past lives. They did actually talk about that pretty often, that basically they just considered them a whack job if it was ever brought up. So I grew up with not a so positive thought on the past life regression. But as I happened to come into spirituality, I did kind of become more aware of the different types of energies. And it really tied in with some of my dreams that I had been having, at least two of them, little glimpses that I still can to this day remember from childhood.
So you're saying you remember as a child having glimpses into past lives?
I think they were dreams. And so I can remember glimpses of those as an adult. These two scenarios, which in my mind play like a movie, but they're really short. I guess in modern world, we could call them like a reel. So just these short little glimpses. And so I was always told as a child, oh, that must be your dream world or, the imagination. I was always told that I was just too sensitive and had a huge imagination. So as an adult, I started wondering, oh, were those dreams? Were they past life memories? I did eventually pick a past life regression therapist.
So you were hoping that the past life regressionist would be able to connect you to those memories that you had been told were your imagination or were just something that you were dreaming about.
Yeah, I was hoping this person could help me identify whether it was truly a past life or perhaps just a dream.
What were these two glimpses or memories that you had?
The first one, I think, is the best way I could describe it would be very similar to Civil War time frame. And it was always me, and in my current physical life now, he is my step brother in this world, but it was always him in a different body, but it was him. And he and I lived in this old home in the middle of nothing but fields and trees. And it felt like we were living perhaps one of the original homes where the Civil War broke out. I could see the different soldiers going at each other with the guns, but back then they had the bayonets, and I could see them going after each other in the different uniforms, running towards each other like we see in the old movies. And there was this creek lined with trees. I mean, there was trees sporadically anyway, but there was this creek, and me and my brother, we actually were able to escape because they ended up battling throughout our home. The home got taken down. Of course, we didn't have like indoor plumbing or lights or any of that. And I don't know where any of the adults or anybody else in the home ever went. But the only part I remember is that my brother and I, we slipped into the creek, and we actually were able to survive by kind of swimming up the creek and getting away from it. And we were able to breathe through the plants that were on the side of the creek and kind of get some air and then get back down. So it was very graphic, but very short. And I could feel the energy, even just telling you, like my heart is racing, like I could feel myself sweating, and I'm bundled up. It's freezing in here. So I very clearly remember that one. That one felt like it was more the middle of America and back during Civil War time. This one feels perhaps 100 years earlier than that, or more. They had like the old wooden cart wagons with the
Mm-hmm.
wooden wheels, and it was like this little cobblestone hill path in our town, and I was homeless, and I think I had a child. I was fairly young. We were starving. And so we were trying to get change or food. We were beggars. And the wagon wheel broke loose and the wagon killed me. Very graphic, but in short, it killed me. So I wanted to know if those were real or dreams.
Did you recognize the child as being someone that was in your current life? Was there any sort of kinship or familial feeling about the child?
No, I just remember feeling such grief for leaving her behind. So I do feel like it was a her. I just remember the grief for feeling leaving her behind and feeling like a crap mother. Didn't provide the best life. Anyway, there was much there.
You didn't see a sign saying you're living in Europe. You just had this knowing that you were in a European town about the 1700s.
Yeah, prior to me just telling you that story, I would have said my past life regression didn't tell me anything. But as I'm describing it, there are some things that I'm recognizing she did help me with. So I'm excited to go a little bit deeper into that because until this very moment, I really would have said I gained nothing from my last experience.
I appreciate your sharing the two memories that you have, or more like you said, glimpses into the past. That's what it feels like.
Very much so for me too. Good to hear you say that as well, because I couldn't tell, was it a movie I saw at some point? What people don't know about me, even those who are close to me don't know this, I struggle deeply with food and I feel like I'm always going to starve to death. And I hoard food. I have food in every crevice, every corner of my house, in the corner of my car, in my every drawer in my desk. I could probably put my arm out and find a reusable grocery bag that probably has some food in it, at least two granola bars. And when I say granola bars, I mean chocolate coated, all the good kind.
With the food that you tend to hang on to just in case, are they typically sweets?
Yeah.
So, okay, so the reason I find that interesting is obviously as adults, we love sweets, we love salt, we love chips, we love pretzels, we love Doritos. I mean,
Carbs.
yeah, carbs. We love fried things. We love things that taste delicious and are seriously horrendous for us. But who loves sweets? Children. Children love sweets. It's Easter Sunday as we're having this discussion. And what was our Easter basket if we celebrated Easter? What was it filled with? Marshmallows,
Yeah.
sugar, chocolate, you name it. Why would you stash something that was perishable like a banana or an orange? So those things tend to go bad. It's not like you're stashing a head of lettuce, but what you're not doing is you're not stashing packets of plain oatmeal, or you're not
No,
stashing a can of beans or a bag of beans that all you need to do is add water, or soups.
no,
You're stashing.
no MRAs.
Right. So I think it's super interesting that you're stashing sweets just like a child would, number one. So the second question then becomes, in both of those memories, you were a child in one in the Civil War era, but you were an adult or maybe a very young adult in the second
Yeah.
memory where you were in a European village, but you were starving and life was incredibly hard. It makes me think of Les Miserables during the French Revolution, which would have been in the 1700s. And people had no bread. And that's when Marie Antoinette presumably said, let them eat cake. So, I mean, there's that whole food starvation connection with the country being so poor and people starving to death, literally. But in both of those time periods, food, especially during the Civil War, I mean, one of the things that they did essentially sabotage the other side was burn the fields so that the horses had no hay to eat, the people had no crops to eat. So they killed the animals so that there would be no animals to eat. So I think that's super interesting that you made that connection between you're always preparing for starvation today and those potential feelings of starvation back then. Do you remember feeling hungry during any of those memories?
In both of those, we were very much at the bottom of the social chain as far as financial standards go.
Gotcha. That's very interesting. The other thing that I think is important to mention that if you had a past life, you have since perished. So we all realize that. Part of the QHHT experience is leading someone through 3 days of a life that their higher self finds to be significant for that session. Part of that experience at the end of the past life is understanding what was happening at the time of death. Because a lot of trauma has been thought to carry on related to the way we have died in a past life. Some people, for instance, would feel a fear of being around a horse, but not understand why, where you had experienced a death related to being trampled and run over by a wagon.
It is so interesting you said that because I've always been obsessed with horses, but have a profound respect and fear to ride a horse or to be that close unless I am coming from the head side of the horse. I love them and I think they're beautiful. And if I could, I would have lots of them to let them graze and live the most beautiful, happy life. But I have a profound, almost fear type of respect for them, the same way I do water, which is a whole nother story. It is very interesting that you say that because I did not put those together until you were just talking about that.
Yes, some people have a profound fear of be it water or an animal or a specific event. And when we do a past life regression, whether I'm using the QHHT process, which is the 3 days in a significant past life, or we're looking at different past lives in general, which is not the QHHT process. Regardless of the technique used, a lot of times people will become aware of the deep seated reason for these fears. One of the individuals that I'm thinking of right off the bat that was a very recent QHHT client of mine, she had always been more than uncomfortable with anything she had to wear around her neck. And during the time period she was growing up, choker necklaces was the fashion. When she was a child, turtlenecks were the deal. It was more than a discomfort. It was a feeling strangled and smothered. When we did her regression, she had one very short life, and this was a QHHT process. So she had one very short life, and typically We don't do 3 days of a short life. We might do what that short life shows us and then jump to another life to experience those 3 days there. In the first life, she had died of pneumonia. She was suffocating. And I remember watching her during the session kind of grasp at her chest and her throat and say, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Then she went on to having a second life where she had died from a fire, which again is not being able to breathe because the smoke, the choking. And she later confirmed to me that after a different past life experience, she did end up seeing herself being hanged as a witch. So when you look at these things as potential reasons or triggers for why someone would have a deep-seated fear of having something around their neck, it makes sense. Back to your experience with having the trampling and a major crop cart that you related to being run over by, that fear of being crushed would definitely make sense to me. So you connected with somebody who you had heard was a therapeutic past life regressionist. Tell me a little bit about that experience. If I recall, when you and I had talked about this before, it wasn't enlightening to you at the time.
Definitely not. And I am not here to bash anyone. I feel like I spent days trying to mentally prepare and make sure I was in the right headspace, focus with intention on what I was wanted out of it for some clarity and guidance. I feel like textbook, I did every dang thing I could get my fingers on to prep. So I was pretty pumped. This is just after COVID. So this was a Zoom past life regression, which I was very hesitant about to begin with. In fact, the reason why I had settled on this particular individual was because they were local. So when I found out, I was a little bummed out, but this is before I really learned how to own power. And I, at the time, was very much just an agreeable person. So I just agreed and went on with it. So the day comes, I hurry home from work, I make sure I have my headphones. And I had told her before that I lived in a little studio with a little kitten. So there was like no doors. This was part of me trying to convince her I needed to come into her facility because I think it was 21 or something like that. It was right after we were technically allowed to see each other again, as long as we were COVID protected. So during that, I was, agreeable, but trying to convince her that this might not be the best decision because I have this new kitten and no doors in my house. And she just kept saying, oh, it'll be fine. Animals usually help. It's good for them. They pick up on the energy. She'll probably just snuggle with you. And I was like, oh, when? My dad is not a snuggler. Okay, I'm double in. So I hurry home from work. I get there, get to my house, my headphones on, settle down, light some candles. In hindsight, I'm learning that I had been watching videos on TikTok and other social medias by Dolores Cannon or sharers of those videos about QHHT. In my mind, that was past life regression. So then I'm on the call with her. She has me lay down. We go through the process. And I feel like I've gotten more clarity out of just a general meditation on my own, which since then I actually took a container with another individual, and the meditation she provided to us was almost identical actually to the past life regression meditation process. So I found that to be a little bit interesting. I will say this past life regression therapist, she has been doing it for like 20 years. So it wasn't, somebody still in training. When it was done, I genuinely don't feel like I got hypnotized at all. I don't feel like I really went under. I don't feel like I had any clarity. And in that moment, what I did get was that I had lost a child and the deep grief. I just was bawling hysterical. And then, oh, time was up. So she was done. Never heard from her again to this day, which shocked me when I heard about your program and the aftercare and compassion and the follow-up and the continuous, genuine authenticity that comes out of you that I've seen you give to your clients over and over again has really reopened my eyes to this modality and its potential. And I think what I've learned is you can't base everything off of one experience. And so until today, I genuinely felt like I didn't really learn anything out of it at all. I already had felt like I lost a child. I had already felt like I knew that deep grief. And only today, when I was talking to you about that one of those lives, did I really put those two together. So perhaps I did get the clarity that was a past life. I would have loved to have learned more. But yeah, there was my 45 minutes.
That does sound to me like you definitely experienced a past life or at least some remnants of past life memories. I think the difference with that experience is that, and you're right, the QHHT experience is different, but I would be readily adopting a lot of the QHHT processes into a non QHHT regression as well. So, for instance, to know that I was doing something over Zoom, this is stating the obvious, but you're regressing someone, which means they've died. Typically, that death, if not the death itself, the life, chances are, had some trauma. Because if we believe in past lives as humans, what life doesn't have some sort of trauma involved? So the limitation of doing a regression for only 45 minutes and not being able to process it with the client gives me a red flag right away, because the chances, as I mentioned, of having experienced a trauma, if not in the death itself, at some point in the life, is very high. So that makes me very sorry that that was your experience. And the second thing is, whether you're doing a QHHT or another type of regressive process, make sure there is a debriefing portion of that session so that you're not left just sobbing and time's up. And now what do you do with these feelings? And are you to integrate these memories? You need to have something to
Right.
some sort of direction to know what to do with these feelings and to take the emotional charge out of it. So, one of the things that I really like about QHHT, and I would include this process, is stepping back from the life that you've just visited and or observed and getting some emotional distance from it and letting it back in the past, but taking the lesson with you. So then we move into another step where you get even more distance from that moment.
I believe that the human experience is about going through the ups and the downs and the emotions and the feelings and the tangibles. Because the way my belief system is structured, it's that is the difference between here and where my higher self typically resides. So, by my personal definition on my belief system, every human life, no matter how goldenly perfect, I'm using air quotes here, it is or isn't, there's always the ups, the downs, the beautifuls and the lows, and everything in between. And so, from my belief system, it resonates deeply with what you're saying. I think just a follow up, not in an email or a text, but maybe at least a call or something to help me pinpoint the things that are coming up in this conversation. Like that would have been, I'm grateful for it now, but I think it would have been perhaps more beneficial if that would have been a part of it to try to help me process that. So I'm very grateful that I met you and all of your skill set. And I'm very excited to try it again with somebody who I do believe has the integrity and the commitment you have with your clients is something I'm excited to experience through your process.
The QHHT process is very much one that must be done in person. It is very lengthy because emotions are involved and there is no time limit. Part of the process is getting to know the individual so that there is a trust, comfort level, and rapport established so that it is easier for you to drop into a stillness or that theta wave of brain state.
Yeah, that actually brings me to a question that I had for you is, do you think or have you experienced people are either easier or more difficult to go under and to connect to these? Because I wonder where this question is coming from is because I struggle with trust in people so deeply because I did not have that connection with her. I believe my stubborn self wouldn't process the way she was trying to process with me because there wasn't that trust built. So when you just said that, it brought me right into that question.
The idea about hypnosis is fascinating and terrifying at the same time because we see on television, Twilight Zone, and all the old movies where people are being hypnotized. A little watch is in front of their eyes, and next thing they're acting foolish.
Hmm.
And so, of course, there is a terrifying fear of losing control. And I think that's just human nature to not want to relinquish that type of control. So, the answer to that question is the more trusting someone can be that they're going to be handled with integrity and treated with dignity, yes, the easier it is for them to relax. The other thing that helps people relax into a meditative state, which is essentially what it is, it's the state right before you're falling asleep or the state that you have as you're waking up. You're very aware of what's happening. You know you're in bed or wherever you're laying down. You know what's playing on TV. You can even hear it. Your cat might be on your lap. I mean, you're very aware. It's just a state of quiet. And so, for anyone who is extremely fearful of losing control and not remembering, it is a state of awareness.
Nailed me right there.
I mean, it makes perfectly good sense. So, if you think about our most vulnerable moments, when do home invasions happen? At night while people are sleeping. We think about why we're fearful and don't want to relinquish our control. It makes perfectly good sense. So, the second thing I tell people is yes, trust number one is absolutely important that someone will treat you with integrity and dignity. But secondarily, you are not asleep. You are fully aware of what is going on. And you have the ability in a relaxed state to stop the process if you're uncomfortable. Or to say to me, if I'm leading your regression, I don't want to do this. And I can work with you to divert around a scene that either you're seeing, hearing, feeling, knowing, smelling, whatever your specific sense or senses are. We can take a step back so that you're simply an observer and not in that somnambulistic state where you're actually in that individual's place where you know what they're feeling, you know what they're thinking. And so we can remove that intense emotion so that you get the cathartic experience you need without the trauma.
Right. Gosh, that really does plug into my experience because prior to that explanation, I wasn't sure she actually had me under, but now I am confident she did because it didn't feel like I was sleeping like I thought I was supposed to feel. I was very aware of what was going on around me in addition to this, meditation or past life regression I was traveling on. So I thought, there's no way this worked. And then at the end, when I'll call it waking up because it felt like I woke up. Like my body felt like I had just gone through like a power hour nap, even though I was so emotional and still crying. My body was like, oh, let's do this. We're ready to go. And so I thought, gosh, what is wrong with me? Did I eat enough today? Am I sugar low? What's happening? That was a beautiful description, I feel like, because for people who have never done it, or even the people like myself who have done it once, I still didn't know if that's what it felt like. So thank you.
I think the other portion of your description of your body's response is very right on because when you're just about falling asleep or you're just waking up and you might be a little fuzzy, but as aware as you are, your body is the thing that felt like it went to sleep, not your mind. Part of bringing someone back from hypnosis isn't bringing them out of some deep trance where they have been mentally gone and we're bringing them back. It's actually getting your heart and your lung back up to normal. Because when you lie down and you close your eyes, things start to slow down. The same thing happens during a regression. So your body relaxes in addition to your mind. So that counting back to full awakening is
Mhm.
more so your body can start moving, the blood flow and the oxygen flow starts to pick up so that your muscles can then start to move. If you probably remember this, Chloe, your body probably, if you paid attention to it, kind of felt like it was a dead weight. You weren't necessarily moving around. Your respiration, while you may have felt panicked or upset at times, and your heart rate might have picked up like that, it wasn't like you were sitting here having a conversation with someone. So, that intense relaxation state that your physical body is in is really important to move slowly to get you into that state and then to move slowly to pull you out so that you don't just jump up with a dead foot.
Right. And credit where credit's due, she did do that very well. She did not explain it like you did, but it felt like my body was a paperweight. My mind was struggling to do the relaxing. And so I remember a lot of times I couldn't get my eyes to close because of the trust that was not completing the circuit in my brain. I knew I was supposed to relax and trust and be calm and lay down and close my eyes. But the fear of all of those elements, and then my brain was panicking because I could feel my body going into a relaxation. So my eyes kept opening, and I thought, this is why it's not working, but I authentically don't feel like my eyes being open changed anything about my experience, except I think what I just came to recognize can be different for each person, similar to meditation. Some people need to sit in a certain way and have a certain thing, and some people can walk and meditate. So is it similar in that past life regression? Like with my eyes keep coming open and I kept thinking, oh, now I'm out of it. Now I'm out of it. I just broke the trance. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a good question. And why I love that question is because it allows me to say, hey guys, how many of you have driven to work or back home from work and not known how you got home, but your eyes were open? Your mind is somewhere else, and you're
Wow.
thinking of some conversation maybe you had or a memory that you're dissecting, and yet you're aware and your eyes are open. I think that is a perfect example of how many people are able to drop into a relaxed state, yet still be aware.
Wow. I feel like that's so powerful.
There are people, and I happen to be one of them, unless I'm having a restasis dry eye moment, me and Jennifer Aniston. Let me tell you, I used to make fun of her. By the way, I love her. I,
Too,
I
I'm
am
such a fan. Oh, I love Jen.
yeah, I am not a celebrity worshiper, but I've always just thought
That's a girl
highly
I could hang
of
out with.
yeah, like I've just thought highly of her because she's not about the drama. You don't see a bunch of crap related to her, and either that or she has great PR people. But
Hmm.
she appears to stay out of the fray. But I did make fun of her, and not because of her, But because when I saw people coming on TV and saying they needed a doctor's prescription for dry eyes, I thought, dude, blink and get over yourself. And I don't know why, because I'm usually so empathetic. But see, my mind was preparing me for my dry eye moment.
You cannot make fun of my girl Jennifer. Ooh.
All right. And I thought, Jennifer has dry eyes. Go get yourself an eye drop and shake it off, girl. Walk it off. I forget how old I was, but it was like miraculously on my birthday, my eyes were glued closed. And I felt like someone had dumped a cup of sand in them. And I
The Jennifer
could not.
Aniston fairy to the rescue.
And I thought, I'm sorry, Jen. I know this is my doing, karma coming back immediately to get me. And yes, everyone out there, I'm fully aware that that's not how karma works. But I will say that every negative thought I had about Jennifer Aniston's tear ducts came back to haunt me in
That's great.
yeah, in full blown doom. But the reason I'm bringing up the dry eye thing is because a lot of people, I know you're laughing, Chloe, the dry eye thing. A lot of people
Digress.
have a really difficult time keeping their eyes open, particularly when scrying for a period of time, when they're trying to look at a candle or trying to look into a bowl of water or tea leaves or whatever it is that calls to you because of that. And so, what I would recommend, because I was up until I really suffered with dry eyes, I was really someone who could meditate fully with my eyes open. It did not bother me. I didn't have to look at anything. I could look at nothing or everything, and I could go there. If you're someone who enjoys meditating with your eyes open, but for whatever reason you do suffer from dry eyes, or maybe it's windy or it's too sunny, close your eyes but visualize and go there as if your eyes are open. And that way you can sink into that feeling that you've always been able to sink into. The other thing I wanted to say is that a lot of people, because they're nervous, especially if they have felt that there's trauma in their past lives, which is a lot of reason why people go to a past life regressionist. So that is a nervous making situation. If you are nervous and you are not able to drop into a meditative state or a relaxed state, be honest and tell your regressionist, because there are other tools that they have available to them to help you get there. So
Wow, that's
yeah,
good information to have.
yeah. So there are very specific tools that we have to help someone get to a point of relaxation that they may not be able to get to immediately. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. And it's certainly nothing to feel like you can't speak up about. But know that what you may be searching isn't necessarily reality. So don't look to be dead asleep. Don't look to be completely unaware. Just look to see if you can imagine. If I say to you, can you see a yellow flower with a bee buzzing around it? And you can see that, you're there. That's all you need to be able to do.
Wow, that makes this modality so accessible to everybody with that awareness. And I wish that I had a fraction of the awareness that we've shared and I've learned today before I went into what I did. So that actually makes me very excited for my next past life regression because personally in my day to day, I would say I don't feel like I have an imagination at all. But as you described the yellow flower, I immediately saw this big, beautiful yellow rose and all the stems and this beautiful fuzzy little bee, and I could hear him buzzing. So
You
that's
have the
powerful.
ability. Yeah. And there are some people who cannot see, but they can hear. And they've done past life regressions. This is amazing with people who have been blind since birth. And they have said, can you see a yellow flower or imagine one? And they can. It's amazing because they may not be able to sense it with their eyes, but they felt flowers. They know what that petal feels like. And maybe someone said to them, "You're touching a yellow rose." Or maybe they were touching a daffodil that just came out for spring and they can smell the scent. So it's super cool what the mind can do. And it's all about trusting that your mind is able to take you on the journey that you need to go on. Really, it's really
Wow.
that simple.
My jaw's still on the floor. Seriously?
Yep,
Wow. So many questions. How do they even know what yellow is? Oh, but if you have past
exactly.
lives, of course you know what yellow light. Oh my gosh, full circle moment for me.
Right.
Sorry. Wow.
It is so
Yes,
cool.
that's beautiful. Like that makes me almost want to tear up with happiness because as an empath, I always feel so deeply one way or another for folks where, or animals or plants, wherever they're at in life in that moment. And that is such a beautiful thought to know that, oh, that is a beautiful thought.
They're not deprived of color. Even if color is accessible to them in a way that you and I can't imagine. Isn't
That's
that
so cool.
cool? I had a person tell me that they were somewhere between a mermaid and a dolphin, and they don't even know what that thing is called, but they could describe it. And she even said to me, "I get the feeling like maybe this was something that has since become extinct."
Well, that's exactly what I thought of when you were describing that just now. Wow.
Right. And how would we know in today's what
Right.
something looked like or felt like prior to
Yeah.
extinction? But she felt it.
Or that it even existed. Yes. Wow.
So I think the question that I'm going to ask you has been answered. So you are very much willing to have another past life regression, whether it's with a QHHT practitioner or someone else, but someone who understands the process and understands how to take you through the debriefing portion.
Yeah. I think for me, and any listeners like me, I think what I have learned that I would love to be able to gift somebody else with for not having to go through, not that I went through anything bad, but so that they can amplify the best results on the first opportunity, I should say, is that make sure you find somebody you truly, deep in your core, feel like you can trust, even if it makes no sense to you. Because what I feel like I'm learning in that moment and now is if you can't see yourself trusting that person, you're wasting everybody's time. But I am trusting them with myself. And I, in my core, I recognize the depth of that, but my brain didn't process that on the front side.
Yep, I would agree with you. And the second thing I would recommend, and I'm so thankful you're willing to give it another shot, especially since you have such vivid memories from childhood that I think would be super cool to dig into, specifically now that you're making those connections with starvation and your current concern about that. So I think that's super important to kind of pull apart. And then the other thing is to trust yourself in being able to do what you need to do to access those thoughts, those memories, because our biggest problem with anything, I think, spiritual is questioning whether it's real. If you see it, if you feel it, if you can taste it, if you smell it, or if you know it, don't question it, go with it.
It's clear to me, I went into my past life regression hoping it would give me validation internally to trust myself. So the motive to me is what set me up for failure. It was not my therapist. Spirituality kept finding me, but I was not ready to let it in. And so I thought, this past life regression could open that door for me and do those things for me. And it absolutely allowed me to recognize that the search needed to be within. So it did its job. It really, really did. Not in the way that I had hoped, but isn't that the story of our life? You want one thing and then you get what you need and you deserve what you need in that moment, I should say.
Well said, girl.
Thanks.
Thank you for sharing. That had to have been a vulnerable moment. So I really appreciate your sharing that.
I'm really grateful because I think it allowed me to understand more dynamics, not only from her perspective as the therapist and what I could have done better as a client, also how I can better prepare myself for the next time. Because the next time I do believe I'm going to have some pretty big breakthroughs. I could just feel it. So
Thank you, my friend.
thank you.
Thank you for joining me today. Please check out the Mystical Mermaid Lounge podcast, a safe space for all spiritual seekers, which I co host with Chloe Brown. And remember, while we can't relive the past, together we can heal it. Thank you so much for listening. If you are interested in my services, visit me at www.quantumjourneygo.com or drop me a note at pastlivescafe.buzzsprout.com. Stay well and be present.
And then the other one is even shorter, but has more emotion tied to it. It's